Welcome to How Hard Can It Be, where we bring in experts in different fields to learn about what it really takes to do what they do. I am your host, Carlos Guerrero, and today we have Daniel Sanchez. Daniel Sanchez is a 24-year-old entrepreneur, and he is the owner of Heavy Duty Glass. Daniel is an expert in his industry who has generated over $10 million in the last 3 years. Daniel's here today to talk to us about how hard can it be to start your business at age 19. Welcome, Daniel. How are you, sir? How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you for being here today. So Daniel, tell us, how did you start your window company? Because you started when you were 19, you're 24 now. How was the process?
So I started off at the age of 18. I started off shadowing another window and door company. Worked for a buddy and his dad doing sales as a side gig. After that year and a half, I pretty much learned the ins and outs of the business. Thankfully, they were willing to teach me everything that I needed to know. I went ahead and started up on my own, and it was a long process. I'm still learning today, and it's been worth the challenge.
Now, what drove you to start your own business? Because you were 18, you said, right?
Correct.
So what made Daniel say, you know what? I don't want to work with these people no more. I want to start my own thing. How did that happen?
It's a good question. I actually had the plan of going to school, finishing school. Although I wanted my own business, I had every intention to finish school. And once I started getting into the sales and I saw how much money I could potentially make in this business, I went ahead and I let that company go, started up on my own, built a good relationship with the manufacturer. Even though my parents were on top of me about finishing school, maybe that's not a must, and I have other doors that that are open, and I ran with it.
So you didn't feel that you needed to get a degree. You wanted to basically jump in, start making money, get that money in your system, start your own business, be your own boss. All right, so you're working for these people for about a year, 2 years, you said, doing
Correct.
sales?
Correct.
How did you notice, wow, there's money to be made in this business? How did you realize that?
I noticed that it wasn't so much about selling the window and the door itself.
Okay.
It became more about selling myself. And once I noticed that, it was when that switch really hit, that it wasn't more about the transaction. It was more about helping somebody, helping that person and finding out what their needs were and satisfying those needs. Once I figured that out, it became pretty easy to keep going and notice that sales was my thing.
So it seems to me that you learn at an early age, which is great, by the way, learning because sales is true. A lot of times people try to sell the product, sell the service, sell something, but at the end of the day, you really selling yourself and helping others. And that's what attracts to people, because people buy from people, not from businesses. So now you're 18, 19 years old. You're a great salesperson. You have the skill, which is great, because sales in a business, as you may know now, is just a small portion on running a successful business. So at that time, what was going on here? They're like, you know what? I'm a great salesperson. I'm gonna start my own business. How do you jump the gap?
Good question. Well, like you said, I noticed right away that it wasn't just sales. It was also building a team, which was my biggest struggle at that time as well. Trying to figure out, okay, the business is slowly growing.
This is already when you have restarted your business.
Correct.
So you leave the company you were working with. You say, I'm going to start on my own. I deserve more. I want more.
Yeah.
And then you started your business by yourself, you said, right?
Yes, by myself.
Okay, so then what happens next?
I started the business. I'm a one-man show. That was a big struggle because I quickly found out that in the business we're in, the construction business, it's one of the businesses where it's very hard to actually do this all by yourself because there's a lot of steps, a lot of moving parts. So quickly, as the business grew, I noticed that I needed help.
How did you grow the business?
I started off subcontracting most of the work to other installers.
Okay.
That helped a lot, but at the same time, I quickly noticed that in this business, you depend a lot on other people, whether it's vendors, subcontractors. Right now we don't subcontract, everything's in-house, but at the time I didn't have anybody, so I was constantly subcontracting. The business ended up growing where I got to a point where I had enough clientele to be able to have people begin to vouch for me. So I feel like that was the big jump, where now I could come in and go to a new client, and I still had people that were, old clients that were willing to come in and vouch for me. Considering that I was young, I feel like that really threw a lot of people off. Right off the bat, they saw I was young. So the fact that I was able to give them these referrals and these other contractors like yourself that were willing to step in and vouch for me. This guy's a young guy, but he's a guy of his word.
So it seems like you had a good problem, right? The good part was that you had enough sales, enough demand, but you couldn't service everything because you were too dependent on subcontractors, too dependent on vendors. But that's a good problem to have, because you have the demand. There's a lot of people in business, they don't have the demand, right? It's backwards. They struggle with demand because they don't have sales skills, they don't have marketing skills. In your case, you had that advantage. What did you do to pivot? Meaning, okay, now you have this problem. Now you realize you have enough demand. You realize that you have a vendor subcontractor issue. What is it that you did at that time to basically fix your problems?
Like you just mentioned, I saw, okay, I have the sales, I have the work. Like you said, for most people, it's the hardest part. I noticed I need another hand on the field, because what began to happen was I was now spending more time on the field than looking for new clientele, or potential clients were reaching out and I wasn't able to come through. So
Deliver the products and services.
correct. So I said, let me think. I sat down with a childhood friend of mine. He had his window company at the time as well. He was more on the field. I was more on the sales side. So we united. Ever since then, things have run a lot smoother, where now I'm able to still provide the installation service, sell the product, and not have the issue of having to take care of pretty much everything. All these, processes that take place in the construction business.
I mean, I love the story, right? You're a young guy, 18 years old. You decide you're going to venture in yourself. You go and you had this idea, I'm going to make all this money. 2 years on the line, you're like, oh shit. I have an oh shit moment, because as you grow your business, you hit a lot of walls.
Yes.
A lot of things that you had no idea. And everything seems like, yeah, I want to be a business owner.
Still hitting
How
walls.
hard can it be? And this and that. So tell us how hard it was, like through those 2 years that you were by yourself, reaching that point that you needed to pivot. You partner up with your partner today.
Yep.
To get things better. And I'm still sure there's still other issues that come out. How hard has it been?
There's still walls, there's still hit walls to this day. From the moment I started out till now, it's gotten a lot smoother. From managing the money that was coming in, because that's one thing that I feel like I struggled with throughout that process, was having to take somebody's, initial deposit. That part itself was tough alone, because now we're talking about trust, the most important part. So here you come in and you're asking somebody to give you $30, $40, $50,000 up front. They don't know who you are. I'm already young. So that was a big thing for me, where even, sometimes I had to go ahead just to prove the client wrong and do a job with no deposit. I feel like the biggest struggle for me was really gaining people's trust. Being young in the business, gaining people's trust was the biggest battle for me.
Do you have some kind of story to tell us about something maybe that happened, something that is like, wow, like...
Definitely. So my first year in the business, I go to this client's house. We're replacing all the windows and doors in this house. 2-story house, nice house in Coral Springs. I didn't have any set formal contract in place at the time. So that's definitely one thing that I would highly recommend for anybody starting off. Make sure that, you have somebody that's an expert in that field that can help you put together a nice formal contract. That's one thing that I also struggled with, which was the legal side of the business.
Oh, yeah.
But we went ahead, we started this job. I verbally went over these things with this client, but nothing on paper.
Oh, well.
So I let her know, look, once we take off these windows and doors, this old alarm system that you have on these windows, it was an old alarm system. The cables are running inside the windows, so it's inevitable. Once you take off the window, the alarm is gonna go.
It's outdated. It has to be updated.
So I let her know this, but again, it's not on paper. 3 months go by from the time you order the windows till they get here. So 3 months go by, of course, the alarms, everybody forgot about the alarms. We get there, start ripping off windows. We put in all the new windows, all the new doors, and at the very end, when I go to get the final balance from this lady, she says, no, but you owe me a whole new alarm system for my house. I no longer have alarms.
Oh, wow.
Like,
wow.
What? I'm like, no, but I told you about the alarms. You never told me about the alarms.
That was your profit.
So I was like, okay. So we had this back and forth. This was one of these clients where she was finding just about any little reason to not pay or pay less, or,
Get a discount, yeah.
Get a discount.
We've seen a few of those.
You know those, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
They're all out there.
so we're, me and her are back and forth.
You know who you are.
We go back and forth about this. Again, lack of experience, not having a contract. There's nothing I could really do legally. So I end up paying for the alarm system. ADT comes out, gets a whole new alarm system.
$5,000 later.
There goes almost $5,000 later. And she pays me, right? So everything's done. The day that I go to her house to collect the final balance, that the alarm was put in, everything was done, I decide I'm gonna go ahead and park in her driveway with, at the time, I was driving a beat up 2002 Ram truck.
Oil leak?
So we go, I pull up to the driveway. I'm happy as hell. It wasn't a 1 or 2 week thing with this lady. This was going on for 2 or 3 months between the alarms and little things here and there to not pay. So we're finally there. She tells me she's gonna pay me. I'm happy. I get there. I get my check. She's walking me outside. I get in the truck. She's waving at me. And as I'm pulling back, I see her face just, and she points at the floor, and there it is. I had to come back the next day. Well, I sent somebody over the next day that had to pretty much pressure clean and scrub and take off the oil off her driveway. From that moment on, I did not park in nobody's driveway to this day. To this day, I do not park in nobody's driveway. Also, I have a set contract in place, pretty much going over all the details from alarms to tiles being broken to
Drywall finish.
window sills, painting, putting into detail the scope of work more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that I would really recommend to anybody. I could only speak amongst the construction business because it's the business I'm in. But if there's one thing I could say is to really have your scope of work in detail. There's no beating around the bush. You know, it's what's there, that's what's getting done. And then, you know, you have change orders and things of that nature.
I like to call them additional work orders.
Additional work orders, it's a good one.
If you're from the beginning, you explain to the client like you did.
Yeah.
Listen, your alarm is gonna have to be replaced and I'm gonna put it on the scope of work. Alarm to be replaced by others in the future. It's already there. That's an additional work. That's not a change order. So, well, that's a great story. So I guess 2 tips. Tip number 1, make sure you have a written proposal with all the details, with all the exclusions to protect not yourself, but also the client and to have a good relationship, right? That's very important.
I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of clients think that the contract is just to favor, you know, the company, but a contract is for both parties. It's to favor both parties, to make sure we're both covered. It's not just the company or myself, it's also the client.
And tip number 2, buy a car that doesn't have an oil leak. Buy your car. Invest in your truck. Okay, you could park in the driveway. Just invest in a car that doesn't have an oil leak.
Correct.
Now let's go back to your story. You get into business with your partner. Now, 2 years later, you learn a lot. You know, you learn about the parking, you learn about the contracts. I guess you have a lot of older stories. As you serve more people, there's things gonna happen. Till today, in my business, there's always something new that happens, right? And then you make adjustments based on that. So now you get into your partner. How has that been working with a partner? Because that was really your pivot point. Your pivot point, you had a huge problem. You couldn't produce enough. You couldn't take care of your clients. You didn't have the experience. You had a great sales experience, but not the experience for the production part.
Correct.
You get into your partner. Your partner seems like he's the one that has the production experience. He's the one that has the field experience. He's the one that could basically help you provide the service. Deliver what you're promising to all these great clients. So then things start to get better. Now you have a partner. Now having a partner, I'm sure there's other challenges, domino effect that appears. What are some of those challenges that you have faced after joining partners? And hopefully your partner doesn't mind that you share this information.
No. So I
like give us the juicy stuff.
I like to describe a partnership, as corny as it sounds, a business partnership is a lot like a marriage with kids.
Oh, wow.
A marriage with the business is your kid.
Yes.
And then here we are, and...
Are you married, by the way?
No, I'm not married.
Oh, okay. So this is your marriage.
Okay, yeah, that's my marriage. So I like to compare it that way because I feel like in a marriage, although I'm not married, I would assume that there's a lot of back and forth. You're not always gonna, see eye to eye and agree on certain things. So I think it's very important to know your place or know your role.
Yeah.
As a partner, I feel like that was one of the most important things. When we first started off, we kind of would both butt heads when it came to, he had certain opinions or certain ways of doing things on the sales side, and I'm like, hey, this is my stuff, I deal with the sales stuff, you deal with that, and then vice versa, I try to get into certain things on the field, and he's like, I got this. So I feel like it really started flowing a lot better once we decided, okay, this is what you do, this is what I do, and let's do what we do best and run with it. That was, I feel, the big pivot there. Once that happened, I feel like things started running a lot smoother.
Yeah, well, one of the things I always say to people is confusion equals failure. So every time you're confused about something, you have to have clarity. And it's true what you said. Once you guys finally decided who's gonna be responsible for what, where does your job start, where does it finish, and where does mine start, where does it finishes, then you could kind of run and have a successful business and start the growth opportunity.
Definitely.
Hey guys, so if you're enjoying this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Also, if you're an expert in your field, we would love to have you as our guest in our show. Go register to howhardcanitbepodcast.com. We know that you're the expert, we know your horror stories. What can you tell the viewers? If somebody is 19 years old, how hard can it be to start your business at 19? What can you tell people here that they're thinking about taking your path, starting their own business? What can you tell them?
If you were 19 years old and starting your own business,
Or 18,
19, 20, we have entrepreneurs that are 16, 17 now. So pretty much all the young entrepreneurs out there, there's one thing that I would say to take it easy, in the sense that don't get ahead of yourself, because sometimes when you try to rush into things, they don't go as planned. If I would have done a little different is maybe listen a little more. That was probably my biggest piece of advice, to listen more than you talk, and ask a lot of questions. There's one thing that I did a lot was ask a lot of questions. When I was shadowing my mentor, I asked a ton of questions. It led to me knowing the ins and outs of the business that I know today. Unfortunately, there's not everybody is going to be willing to help you along the way. Nobody wants you to get a step ahead of them. So definitely, asking a lot of questions and being grateful for the people that are willing to help you, and don't take that for granted.
Okay, so what it sounds to me like you're telling the younger viewers here is that either get a mentor or get a job and just basically learn by the experience, and don't try to do it on your own without any experience, without a mentor. I think that's a great tip, because I think that's a shortcut to
Definitely.
to getting where you want to get by learning from somebody that's already been there.
Yep.
Or that's already doing it.
Right.
So with that said, you said that you're a great salesperson. Maybe what tips can you give them about how to be a great salesperson, how to build the trust? Because a lot of people are going to have your issue, right? You're young, you go into somebody's house, or you go in, or whatever you do in construction, and then you're gonna ask for a big lump sum of money. How do you pass the trust of somebody giving you $30,000 deposit and hoping you deliver? Because when you first start, most likely you're not gonna have the reviews online. You're not gonna have the presence. You're not gonna have somebody that they call and say, yeah, this is a great person. You have to start building that. How did you build that, and what tips can you give people so that they could follow those steps?
If I only had one word to answer that question, it would be communication. For the people that are in the window business, we know it takes, anywhere from 2 to 3 months to get that product in. If they don't hear from you in those 2 to 3 months, they're gonna assume something is wrong, even though nothing is wrong. So one thing that I really did to create that trust was making sure I stayed in contact with these people. Communication, letting them know that I'm still here. And as far as the sales goes, I never had a sales pitch per se. I always tried to go into a client's house, figure out what their problem was, and letting them know that I was here to solve that problem.
I love that.
Making it a real, genuine relationship. And I feel like that's what's really led me to do pretty well in sales, is really just being genuine.
What you're saying is when you're selling, you need to figure out what problem you're gonna solve for that person.
It's the first thing.
Once you figure that out, then you could basically offer your services that are gonna solve the problem, and being of service, and then communicating with them enough information that they feel comfortable with you, so that they say, you know what, let me give you the project. Also, once they give you the project, it is very important to not disappear for 2 or 3 months, to give them weekly, monthly, every week updates so that they feel that things are happening.
Yep.
I love that. Now, if our viewers, maybe somebody's looking for a glass, or maybe they want more tips from you because they're young, they want to get into the business, how can they reach you?
Guys, if you have any questions, any doubts, or if you're looking to purchase any impact windows and doors, give me a call at 786-558-5641, and you can deal with me directly at Heavy Duty Glass. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Can't stop, won't stop. Let's go.
Let's go.
Good stuff, brother.
Hey, thank you.
How hard can it be?